What's up, Christ Center Mental Health community? This is me, David Lee Chu-Sarche. I represent Christ Center Mental Health, the ministry where I talk about mental health awareness from a Christian perspective in order to give you real hope in Jesus' name to the glory of God the Father by the power of the Holy Spirit. All right, before I get started on this video, I just have a couple announcements for those of you that are new to this channel. You can support this channel through Patreon, and you can also support this channel through prayer. You can also, for those of you that have schizophrenia that want a support group that's Christian based. There's the Christ Center. There's a Christ Center Mental Health. It's called the Christ Center Schizophrenia Support Group. It's on Facebook. So it's for anyone who is a Christian who suffers with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, schizotypal disorder. So please join the group. The only requirement is that you're a Christian. The links to these will be in the description box below. All right, so I recently, this article was brought to my attention titled "Mental Illness Doesn't Make You Special," and I just I felt like I want to make a video about this because there's a few things on here that I want to address. I'm going to address this whole article, so this is going to be a pretty lengthy video. So please bear with me. Bear with me. I have quite a bit to say about this article, but first of all, I do want to say, I do fully acknowledge that there is a real, there's a real thing going on in society right now called the romanticization of mental illness. That is going on. There's people that are romanticizing mental illness, and that's just as bad as stigmatizing mental illness. Because what romanticization does is it essentially trivializes mental illness, and it trivializes the struggle that real people with mental illness go through. So that's why romanticization is wrong. However, I do there is also, on the flip side, there is still a real stigma against mental illness. I mean, if I like to this day, if you are working and you can't go into work because you need a mental health day off, say you're depressed, or say you're hearing voices and they're really bad but one particular day and that you can't really go to work, you can't just call your boss and tell your boss that, because your boss isn't going to understand. So you have to make up a lie and say, oh well, I'm sick, I can't come in, or my dog died or something, I don't know. But for instance, I used to work at this refinery, and I was experiencing really bad voices at work. And, oh, not voices. I was suffering really bad hallucinations at work, and I couldn't really focus on my work. And I needed to go home early, and I knew that if I told my boss that I was seeing things and I need to go home early, she'd probably fire me. So I made up a lie saying that my wife was in the hospital, so so I can get off work early. So I mean, and then I use that excuse to not go to work the next day, and looking back on it, it was a horrible thing to do, and I regret doing it. But at the time, I didn't know what else I could do. I didn't know what else I could do, because I know this, because the stigma is very, and the fact that I didn't know what else to do and I had a lie like that proves that the stigma is still out there. Mental illness is still very much stigmatized. Um. Anyways, so um, like I said, the title of this video is titled "Mental Illness Doesn't Make You Special." Um, it starts off. This person named Freddie DeBoer. Um, it mentions this woman named Marianne Eloise. And he says, Marianne Eloise wants the world to know that she does not have a regular brain at all. That's her declaration on the first page of her memoir, Obsessive Intrusive Magical Thinking. I never read the book. I don't know. I don't know who this woman is. But I mean, it's true though that, it's true scientifically that a bipolar, the schizophrenic brain, and a PTS brain looks significantly different from a normal brain. I mean, that's just science. Like, the CAT scans proven that. But also at the same time, it's also true that people with mental illness don't have a normal brain, just mentally either, because we suffer neurosis and we suffer like psychosis, and normal brains don't suffer that. All right, so the book catalogs her experience of a dizzying variety of psychiatric conditions: OCD, anxiety, autism, ADHD, alcohol abuse, seasonal affective disorder, and eating disorder, night terrors, depression. All of those are real real disorders that shouldn't be trivialized. Like they are serious disorders, and like I mean, if she was really diagnosed with all of that, then she is going through a lot of like hard stuff, and um she shouldn't her condition shouldn't be trivialized. By her own telling, Eloise has suffered a great deal from these ailments. I believe her and wish better for her. I'm glad he says that he believes her. Like, but she would prefer not we not think of them as ailments at all, and that combination of self-pity and self-aggrandizement is emblematic of our contemporary understanding of mental health. Like, I want to know, what does he mean by like the combination of self-pity and self-aggrandizement? Like, like that just honestly, like, it just seems, I don't know, like, I mean, maybe some people are self-aggrandizing and some people are feeling self-pity, but I know me personally, I don't pity myself, and I don't think more of my mental illness than I should. I don't brag about it. Like like I know that I have a real mental illness, and that's a real medical condition, and therefore I need to take medication for and take care of it. But I don't make more of it than I actually should. I don't brag about it. I don't boast about it. I don't wear it like it's something proud to. Um, I don't wear it like a badge per se. Like, and I also don't pity myself for it either. Um, it's like I know I fancy myself a Christian mental health advocate, and that's because I believe that mentally ill people need someone to advocate for them. Like, because of the stigma is real, like we like there needs to be someone, especially in the Christian church, to advocate for Christians that struggle with mental illness. And that's why I do what I do on this platform and in my blog. Um, like I'm not doing it because I want to brag to people. Hey, look at me, I'm special. I have a special illness that makes me unique. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing it because, number one, I want to help the body of Christ better understand mental illness, and number two, I want to show mentally ill people in the church that it's okay to be open about their mental health struggles, and that there is people that understand them. Like, so that's why I do what I do on this platform. It's not to get any kind of kudos or to get any kind of congratulations or to pat myself on the back or anything. I'm not even doing it for self pity. Not even for that. Like that. So, yeah. Um, Alois is a champion of neurodivergence, an omnibus term that's recently ballooned in popularity, which can include autism, anxiety, personality disorder, or indeed any other psychiatric condition that's hot right now. Like that, I, I'm going to go move on because I don't know exactly I don't know where he's coming from with that statement. That just seems odd to me. The term is designed for making sweeping pronouncements. Forget the fact that, say, autism and schizophrenia are so different that they have at times been described as opposite conditions. Like, I don't know anybody that describes schizophrenia and autism as opposite conditions. Like like schizophrenia and autism are completely different from each other. They're not two sides of the same coin. Like, autism is, I don't know enough about autism, so I'm not going to speak on that, but I know that autism is significantly different from schizophrenia, so I don't know anybody that tries to say that they're two sides of the same coin. Like, schizophrenia has to do with paranoid thoughts and delusions um and and hallucinations and stuff like that, like and disordered thinking. Like schizophrenia is not the opposite of autism, and anybody who says that doesn't know what they're talking about. Forget the fact that saying you're neurodivergent has much medical meaning as saying you have a disorder of the body. Yeah, that's really. The idea is that there's a group of people whose brain chemistry differs in some beautiful way from some Platonic norm, but it's an idea that's taken on great symbolic power in contemporary liberal culture. There we go. Like, okay, I will say this. I really hate the fact that mental illness has been, or mental health advocacy has been turned into a liberal agenda, like, or a liberal ideology. Like, I don't think this should be a political thing. I don't think liberals or conservatives should claim mental health as their platform. Like, I think mental illness can affect anybody, regardless if you're liberal or conservative, or if you're Christian, Muslim, or if you're black, white. It's like, it doesn't matter. Well, mental illness can affect anyone. It's mental illness is literally colorblind, and like, mental illness doesn't care about your gender or anything like that. Anybody can be affected by mental illness. Therefore, um, anybody can talk about mental health. And like, I mean, I do think it's sad how it's typical that liberals generally have a better understanding of mental health than a lot of conservatives do. And I say this as a conservative. I'm a conservative myself. I'm very right wing in my politics. Like, I'm against abortion. I'm against gay marriage. I'm for traditional marriage. I'm for gun rights. Like, I'm very right wing. I advocate for a flat tax, like all of that. But at the same time, like, it saddens me to think that liberals have it more are more correct on mental health than conservatives. Because I do think that conservatives, if they really wanted to, they could do a lot of good for mentally ill people. Like, there is, for example, a thriving ADHD community on TikTok and Tumblr. People who view their attentional difficulties not as an annoyance to be managed with medical treatment, but as an adorable character trait that makes them sharper and more interesting than others around them. Okay, I do admit, like, on TikTok and Tumblr, there is a lot of romanticization of mental illness. Like, and I think that's wrong. Like, mental illness doesn't make us adorable or unique or something special. Like, like it's a medical condition that needs to be treated with medication and counseling. I mean, we would not think that it's okay to be to romanticize cancer, for instance. So why would we romanticize mental illness? Um, and then It's also easy to come across social media users who declare how proud they are to be autistic. I'm glad they're proud, but the repetitive instances make me wonder who exactly they're trying to convince, us or them. Now, like, I don't know what exactly he's talking about with this, but I mean, people that are saying they're proud to be autistic or proud to be mentally ill. I mean, honestly, I think it has more to do with they're just trying to show people that it's okay to have a mental illness in a culture that stigmatizes mental illness. Um, like, it's definitely mental, the culture stigmatizes mental illness so much that it kind of requires people to come out and say, "Hey, I have a mental illness and I'm proud of it." Like, it's a reaction to a culture that stigmatizes us and wants us to be silent. Um, is it necessarily correct? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But like, like, I understand why people are speaking out against the stigma, because we've been silenced for so long and we've been mistreated for so long. For one, I'm glad that people are coming out and speaking out about mental illness, because that's the first step. Raising awareness is the first step in destigmatizing mental illness. Darker, there's a world of DID TikTok. DID, dissociative identity disorder, is a profoundly controversial condition, once known as multiple personality disorder. Yeah, yeah, DID. It's a rare condition, but it is real. There are people out there that do have multiple personality disorder. Actually, a popular YouTuber that I watch named Living Well with Schizophrenia. She has on her channel an interview with someone who actually has dissociative identity disorder. It's quite interesting. Um, so many serious experts question whether it exists at all. At the very least, it's incredibly rare. I don't know any experts that question the reality of DID, but yes, it is rare. Like, I don't know anybody in my life who has dissociative identity disorder. I would like to one day interview someone on his strength and weakness who has dissociative identity disorder. So anybody out there who has been diagnosed with that by a clinical psychiatrist, please contact me and we'll set up a time for me to interview you. But you have to be a Christian. That's the only requirement with his strength and weakness is that you're a Christian and that you're diagnosed with a clinical mental disorder. Um, all right, and yet thousands of adolescents have diagnosed themselves with the condition and happily perform the various personalities for their social media followers, typically in ways that defy all established psychological understandings of the disorder. Like, I've seen some of the videos of people trying to show off their multiple personalities, and yeah, I think it's foolish. Like, you shouldn't die. First off, I don't agree that people should diagnose themselves with mental illness. Anyways, that's incredibly dangerous. Um, but yeah, like those videos I seen on TikTok, yeah, it is pretty foolish that they're doing that, and I wish that they would stop. Against this backdrop, Aloy's marketing department's dream come true. Hers is a story of the young, beautiful, dysfunctional, and successful. Alois is the perfect 21st century woman from a certain internet-enabled philosophy of human affairs. She is an admirer of witchcraft and believes that women have a mythical connection to water. She does a lot of drugs and becomes bisexual. She uses Tumblr and travels a lot, vacationing in Lisbon and the south of France, and moves to Los Angeles to be an actor, taking care to ebb taking care to ebb that period of her life in a self-defensive patina of irony. She lives an enviable life of obvious socioeconomic privilege, which she does not have time to recognize as she's too busy cataloging her psychiatric maladies. Okay, I don't know what the point of that with that. Well, like, we don't need a biography of her, but yeah. She crams them into every last antidote. Apparently, nothing happens to her that she does not ultimately attribute to those maladies. Eloise's love of swimming as a child, for instance, laboriously explained in terms of neurodivergence. I'm talking thousands of words. It seems never to have occurred to her that a love of swimming is not exactly rare among children, or that she doesn't have to justify her joy at being in the ocean by making it deeper. Again and again, she holds perfectly mundane attitudes and behaviors up to the reader and says, "Isn't this special?" Like, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't read the book. I'm actually kind of curious now, so I might get the book just so I can read it and maybe do a review on it. Like, I'm actually kind of curious to see what this woman is talking about. The label neurodivergence is so vague and capricious, pretty much anything can be pulled into its orbit and made diverse. There's a meme that crops up Tumblr, TikTok, and Twitter that starts with a neurodivergent urge to, and is immediately followed by, well, just about anything a person does. Common examples include the neurodivergent urge not to reply to an email or to order food rather than cooking what's in the fridge. Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he means by neurodivergent, but like, having like there could be many reasons why someone has an urge not to reply to an email. Like, if they have OCD that tells, like, and they feel like they're feeling like intense anxiety to um to do some kind of ritual before they can open up the email. If they don't do that ritual, then they can't open up the email. Then that could be something that prevents them from opening the email right then and there. Or if someone has schizophrenia and they're hearing voices telling them, "Hey, if you open up that email, somebody's going to kill you," that could be another example of how someone will not open the email because they don't want to die. So there's many different reasons why someone would be afraid to open an email. Um, Take Aloysius' nightmares. She has at times in her life suffered from debilitating bad dreams that made sleep a constant source of pain and fear. This sounds like an awful condition and she deserves sympathy, but she gives the game away when she writes, maybe my relationship with dreaming wasn't like everybody else's, not like everyone else's, no, but certainly like that of many people who suffer from recurring and terrifying nightmares. Alois writes that according to the Mayo Clinic, nightmare disorder only affects about 4 to 5% of adults, which shocked me. Did adults really not have nightmares? It's as if she generally does not know the difference between 4% and 0. Like, I don't know what, yeah. It is perhaps comforting to see every last detail of one's life as the product of some uncontrollable force. I am this way because I was born this way, Alois writes, and remarkably bald denial of personal responsibility. As a pawn of the various interior forces that do combat in her brain, she is adamant that that there is nothing wrong with her, that she is suffering all that her suffering is all in service to some deeper way of life to live, that she is proud of the very conditions she asks us to treat as perpetual get out of jail free card for her behavior. Like, I don't think that mental illness excuses one's behavior. Like, people that have mental illness are still responsible for what they do. However, mental illness does provide a context for why they are behaving the way they behave. And I do believe that mental illness actually displays the glory of God. Like I've said this numerous times that mental illness displays the glory of God. I even did a video talking about why mental illness displays the glory of God, and I even did a blog. I even wrote a blog talking about how mental illness displays the glory of God. And, like, if you haven't seen or read this, like, I will post the blog and the video in the comments section, or not the comment, in the description box below, so you guys can watch my video. You guys can read my blog and see it for yourself. Like, I talk about how mental illness displays the glory of God. Um, the implication is that neurodivergent might just be better than other people. As with introverts, social media users have developed a discourse around neurodivergence that is nakedly self-celebratory, a braggart genre. Eloise has clearly endured a great deal of hardship, but like her culture, she seems to feel that this hardship can only be given meaning by being woven in the journey of self-actualization. Eloise writes that her life is underpinned and ultimately made whole by obsession. Can you imagine a sadder statement, an adult telling you that there is nothing to distinguish her or give her value but her psychiatric conditions she shares with millions of others? Like, okay, I do admit, I agree that self-actualization is a problem. Like, our goal should not to be self-actualize, to look within ourselves. Our aim is should be to look to Christ and to honor and glorify Christ with our lives. That's what we were put on this earth for, to honor and glorify God, and to enjoy Him forever. So, like, like, I do agree that the goal should not to be self-actualization. That's not biblical. That's not, and actually it's actually very harmful to actually focus on yourself. Studies have shown the devastating effects that happens when you focus on yourself. Um, Also, like, I do think that we shouldn't just focus on our mental illness as what makes us unique. Like, we shouldn't think that mental illness is what makes what make us all that we are. Our identity is not in our mental illness. Like, our identity, first off, if you're a Christian, your identity is in the fact that is in Christ. But if you're not a Christian, I mean, you can still find your identity in other things rather than other than your mental illness. Like, you can find your identity as a father, you can find your identity as a mother or a son, daughter, brother, sister, friend, um, or you can find your identity in your work or that you do. Like, there's millions of things that you can find your identity in that would be a lot better than finding your identity in your mental illness. Mental illness should not define who you are. It's just, mental illness is something you deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's something that you have to take care of, but it does not define you. It does not define who you are. Diagnosis is the holy grail of the neurodivergence narrative. Alois fixes hers on hers and its quasi-mystical powers. No reader can doubt that her problems are real, but she seems to have treated getting diagnosis like consumer on Amazon. She states flat out on several occasions that she went shopping for an autism diagnosis, went to doctors with the express intent of wringing one out of them. That was a time when self-diagnosis was understood to be unhealthy and perhaps embarrassing, but this is a brave new world we're living in now. Like again, yeah, I think self-diagnosis is unhealthy. No one should self-diagnose. Once enough people insist on mental illnesses as upbeat and fashionable lifestyle trends, then any of us who oppose it are guilty of the grave sin of all, the sin of perpetuating stigma. Like, like yes, people who oppose mental illness are perpetuating stigma. I mean, no matter how this guy wants to paint it, if you oppose mental health awareness, or then you are perpetuating stigma. Period. Like, it's a stigma to call autism a disorder, despite the fact that it renders some completely nonverbal and unable to care for themselves. It's stigma to suggest that someone with ADHD bears any responsibility at all for problems at school or work. Like, someone with ADHD, yes, like, if they have problems at school or work, like, they are responsible. However, like, saying that, it kind of trivializes the real struggle that people with ADHD have. Like, ADHD is a very complex disorder, and people that suffer with ADHD, like, they have real problems focusing on school and focusing on work, and like, it's extremely difficult for them. They need medication to help calm them down, and like, so to just say, oh, they bear responsibility, like, it kind of trivializes the matter. um it's stigma to speak the plain fact that people with psychotic disorders sometimes can make acts of violence under the influence of their conditions. According to most statistics out there, people with psychotic disorders are more of a danger to themselves than they are to other people. So, I mean, yes, sometimes they do commit violent acts, but well, like, that's a rare occasion that someone with a psychotic disorder would hurt someone else. So to say that, oh, this happens, it kind of is perpetuating the stigma. Like, I don't like how on the news, every time someone does a mass shooting, the news is quick to say, oh, this person has some kind of psychotic disorder. Like, that perpetuates stigma and makes people afraid of people with schizophrenia, when most of us with schizophrenia or bipolar or any kind of psychotic disorder, we're more of a danger to ourselves. So we're most likely going to hurt ourselves before we hurt other people. Um, it's stigma, in other words, to treat those of us with mental illnesses as anything else than wayward children. Stigma, that cartoon monster, has never been in the top 100 of my problems in 20 years of managing a psychotic disorder. But never mind, stigma is the ox to be gored in contemporary pop culture, and so we must fixate on it to the point that we sideline the health, safety, and treatment of those with mental disorders. I am really saddened by the fact that this is someone who, I, I guess he's been diagnosed with psychotic disorder, and he's trying to essentially say that stigma is not a problem. Like, that's that's ridiculous. If he really thinks stigma is not a problem, then I suggest he try next time he experiences a psychotic episode, he should try taking a day off from work and tell his boss that he needs to take a mental health day off work. I guarantee you, unless his boss is a mental health professional, his boss is probably not going to understand, and he's probably going to lose his job. Or I guarantee if he if he has a psychotic episode in public, I dare him to have a psychotic episode in public and see how the public reacts to his psychotic episode. Because I guarantee you it's not going to be favorable. Like, what I find tragic about those who buy into the neurodivergence narrative is that they become their illnesses. And yes, there are alternatives. Alois and people like her never seem to consider one of the possible ways that they could have dealt with their myriad disorders: to suffer, only to suffer. To suffer and to feel no pressure to make suffering an identity, to not feel compelled to wrap suffering up in an Instagram friendly manner, to accept that there is no sense in which her pain makes her deeper or more real or more beautiful than others, that in fact the pain of mental illness reliably makes us more selfish, more self-pitying, more destructive, and more pathetic. To understand that and to accept it and to quietly go about life trying to maintain peace and dignity is, I think, the best possible path for those with mental illness to walk. I think the best possible path for people with mental illness to walk is to submit their lives to Christ. That's what I think is the best path for people with mental illness to walk. Like, I think the only hope for mentally ill people is found in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that's the best path. But in this culture, all must be monetized, all must be aspirational, anything can be marketed. Alois lacks the self-awareness to ask whether there's something exploitive and ugly about turning psychological illness into fodder for soap opera and motivational posters. Again and again in this book, Alois gins up the kind of statement on mental health that you might find in an Instagram meme, wedges it awkwardly into some prosaic story about her youth, and then skips away. At one point, she mocks Airbnb style live, laugh, love signage, and I can only think you're writing a book filled with it. Like, again, I don't know what he's talking about because I haven't read the book. The most real, human, most honest, and most humane part of Alois's book is something she wrote in a journal in 2009 when she was a teenager. I fear in my mind as one single assembly by one fireman, one fire safety in primary school caused this deep-seated fear. That shows the true extent of my mind's power over me. Although these things are unlikely to happen just yet, I fear every one of them one day. I don't need a doctor to tell me that is a problem, but I want so badly to get better. This is what it's actually like to have a mental illness. No desire to justify or celebrate or honor the disease, only a desire to be rid of it. I disagree with him. I don't have a desire to get rid of my mental illness. I don't have a desire to celebrate it, and I don't have a desire to justify it either. However, I don't want to get rid of it because I believe, like I said earlier, that my mental illness displays the glory of God, and that's something I'm content with. I'm content with the fact that my mental illness and that mental illness in general displays the glory of God. And I can go into that, but that'll make this video even longer. I will just say watch the video that I'm going to post in the description box below so you guys can see it for yourself and you can. I'm also going to post a link to the blog where I write about this too, so you can see that for yourself as well. But I don't have a desire to be rid of my mental illness. But the modern misconception of neurodivergence and disability activism generally wants to have it both ways. Sometimes people would prefer you to think of their conditions as debilitating hindrances for which they may demand special dispensation, and sometimes they would like them to be seen as positive personality quirks that make them unique. Like, I think both of those extremes are bad. Like, we shouldn't want to, well, mental illness is debilitating for one. Like, so there's no way to get around that. It is debilitating, but at the same time, it's not something we shouldn't be seen as a positive personality quirk. Like like it's something that we deal with that disables us, but like I said, mental illness displays the glory of God, and therefore, um, like, it's not something in us that we should be seeing, oh, look, this person is special. No, people should look at us and say, oh, look at the glory of God in this person's life. Um, it's hard to witness the damage that has been done to this young woman by a culture that insists she views her suffering as part of a beautiful journey. Today's activists never seem to consider that there is something between terrible stigma and witless celebration, that we are not in fact bound to either ignore mental illness or treat it as a. Today's activists never seem to consider that there is something between terrible stigma and witless celebration, that we are not in fact bound to either ignore mental illness or treat it as an identity. Like, I agree that mental illness isn't an identity, but it's also not something we should ignore either. Like, like I mean, like, yes, I agree that it shouldn't be stigmatized and it shouldn't be celebrated. Like, I think it should be acknowledged, and like I said, we should see the glory of God in mental illness. Like, we really should, because the glory of God is shown in mental illness, and like that's how we should see it. When were we wiser and more serious, we must be able to see psychiatric disorders as both natural and lamentable, as beyond the control of the individual but still within their responsibility. We would have sympathy for those who suffer for them, but recognize that sympathy only accrues to those whose conditions are unfortunate, unhealthy. We might be honest and say that yes, it's bad to be afflicted with psychiatric disorders. We might then have the courage to say that mental illness sucks, that there's nothing good about it, that the efforts to bend it into some superpower of greater creativity or deeper living is sour grapes from those who can't escape. We might help people like Alois rather than celebrating them as self-actualized girl bosses. We might have the wisdom to ease her suffering while we patiently tell her that there's nothing beautiful about it. All right, and that concludes the article. Um, yeah, I have some serious disagreements. Like, as I don't agree that mental illness in of itself, that there's nothing beautiful about mental illness in of itself. Mental illness is an ugly thing. It's a result of the fall, and it's a real struggle for many people. However, I do see the glory of God in mental illness, and I think that we need to change our way. I think that we need to change the way we think of mental illness, and we need to see how mental illness does glorify God. And I think if we see mental illness in that light, it'll change the way we view mental illness. Period. Um, but yeah, so like that's all I have to say. I thank you all for sitting here and watching this whole video. Like, I know this was pretty lengthy, and I appreciate you watching this entire video. Um, like yeah, I thank you. And like, if the Christ Center Mental Health Ministry has been a blessing to you at all, please consider supporting the ministry via Patreon. I can't do this without you, so please consider donating, supporting the ministry. If you do support the ministry, it'll give you access to a private Discord community for online peer support and fellowship. It'll also give you access to a devotional on faith and mental illness. I am working on getting a devotional published by July 1st, and I'll release a free copy of that to anyone who pledges to Patreon. And then I'll sell it for a discounted price on Amazon as well. So please keep an eye out for my devotional that I'm coming out with. I'm going to try and get it published by July 1st, Lord willing. If I can't get it published by then it'll probably be a little bit longer, but I'm definitely going to get it published. Um, Also, for those of you that struggle with mental health issues, me and my team are making ourselves available to you via peer or for peer support only. We're not mental health professionals, so don't use us as a replacement to see a mental health professional or peer support. And but yeah, if you want to contact me or anyone on my team, I'm gonna post a link to the ministry website in the description box below. So if you click on that link, you'll see a way to contact us, and you can contact us like you can either call the Christ Center Mental Health line, which is 567-343-3727, or once again it's 567-343-3727. And there's also the email that you can email me at christcentermentalhealth@gmail.com. Or like I said, if you click on the link, you can find my team members, their emails, and you can email one of them too. All right, that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this was a blessing to you, and have a good day. God bless you, and stay strong in the Lord. All right, bye.